The video you guys are about to see is basically the 3 of the 4 founders talking about why we started OPPO and some of our personal experiences dealing with sexual harassment in Cairo, Egypt.
All of my life I've heard of the term harassment of women, but I've never really understood it until I grew older and experienced it myself.
I believe that one of our main reasons for starting OPPO was to
prevent or try to prevent and stop males from sexually harassing females, and for people to generally get the idea of what happens to females and girls in Cairo and on the streets of Cairo, and
give women a voice and the proper voice that they need to stand up against sexual harassment. I mean, I feel like it's very one-sided.
How it's something that should be stopped.
Parents and just in general society has led females to believe that, oh yeah, don't wear that because you're gonna get harassed. Don't wear that, you could get raped. Don't wear that while walking to the store or whatever, which we can't even do. I feel like men should be informed, men, boys, whatever, that just because a woman is wearing something that maybe shows a shoulder, maybe it shows her knees, it even shows her stomach, that shouldn't give you a reason to stare. That shouldn't make it something that gives you the right to harass a woman. And I feel like just because of how far gone it is, it's reached a point where at this point we're just careful with what we wear, women and girls, and it shouldn't be like this. 12-year-olds shouldn't be harassed, 11-year-old girls shouldn't have to worry about
harassment of women.
I mean, I've heard of so many stories of young girls going through this, and it's just, it's too much. It has to stop.
I was swimming in a lake in the North Coast, and then this old dude with a jet ski, he came up to me and he was like, "Get on the jet ski," and I just went to my mom, and she was on the beach, so I went up to her and he kept on staring at us in a very sexual way, and then I spent 30 minutes on the beach, and then I got into the lake again, and he came up to me again and he said the same thing, and from this point on I just got onto the beach of the lake, and I didn't go in the lake again this day.
So one day my mom had brought me to the Mall of Arabia and told me it was for Christmas, so she left me alone to do Christmas shopping for the rest of my family. So I was walking in and out of shops, and I noticed that this one particular man was following me. Every time I would go into a shop, he would wait outside and pretend to be on the phone, and when I would exit that shop, he would follow me out and into the next shop. He came up to me several times, asked me where I worked, what I worked at, and I told him to leave me alone. He said, "Well, are you still in high school?" I was like, "Yes, leave me alone." He would ask me what high school I was in, how old I was, and then my parents met me and the man went away. The next day, the actual next day, I went and I saw the same man in the same place doing the same thing to other girls. Now, this man, I saw him around at different places. He came to me once when I was sitting in Americana Plaza after I had watched a movie called Star Wars. I was wearing a Star Wars t-shirt, as was he. He came up and he was, in English, he was like, "Oh, you're so beautiful, you look so beautiful in that shirt. I've never found a girl that likes Star Wars in Egypt." And he kept trying to ask me what high school I went to, if he could come see me at my high school, if he could meet up with me another time, if we could go watch a movie together. I felt very uncomfortable, so I tried calling my mom, and her phone wasn't working. So I couldn't contact my mom, nor my dad, nor my sister. So I sat there for the next half an hour or an hour, trying to get him to leave me alone, and he wouldn't.
So my experience was actually not on the street. It wasn't walking. It wasn't in a place like Arcane or Americana or a restaurant. It was actually in my own neighborhood, 2 minutes away from my house. I was walking my dog and I was going for a jog, and I was stopped by this man who was 39, 40, and he first of all, his approach was weird. He was looking at the wrong places, let's just leave it at that. And his motives were not innocent. He obviously wanted something, and he kept asking me about myself. He kept asking me about when I walked my dog and if we could meet up, and really weird questions which made me really uncomfortable. And I continued, I tried to avoid him numerous times, but whenever I would jog past that area, he would stop me again. and he would, at one point he actually came up to me and he like came really close to the leash in my dog, and he like put his hand was like this far away from mine, and he was trying to basically touch me in a way, and I managed to step back, and I was like, okay, hold on, like enough. And after that, like he was like, oh yeah, we should teach each other's languages. I'll teach you Arabic if you teach me English. Come sit next to me, whatever. And I was kind of like, I was at that time I had just turned 14, and so I got really paranoid, and that was the third time he had stopped me, and it had reached a point where it was like, okay, it's enough. So I walked away and I called my parents, and I was panicking at that point because I didn't know what else was going to happen. He had gone too close for comfort, and he wasn't being polite, and he wasn't looking in the right areas. So I called my dad and my mom, and I told them what happened. And we found the house that he worked at, and they were actually neighbors to us. Their house was pretty close to ours. So we went to them and we talked to them, and the guy, this was the funny part, where the man denied everything. He was like, oh yeah, no, he was accusing me of instigating the conversation. He was accusing me of wanting to continue the conversation. He was basically saying that I was the whole reason this was happening, and that I was the one who didn't want to stop talking to him, which is completely invalid and very wrong. And yeah, I mean, it's just, that's what happened, and it's really sad that it happened in my own neighborhood.